Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, I was arrested for underage drinking while at work. I am a 21-year-old bartender. In Alabama. I was at work last Saturday evening. We had just started serving customers at 6 PM when I went outside to have a quick beer and a cigarette. While I was out back, the cops came in and carded everyone. I went inside to present my ID. This has happened twice before when they carded everyone in the bar, and the officer decided that it was fake because it was vertical. The officer tried to confiscate my ID and I asked for his supervisor because my ID is not fake. Instead of the supervisor being called, the officer arrested me and booked me on charges of underage drinking. I was in lockup until Monday morning when my friends were finally able to bail me out. I'm just wondering if I have any legal recourse. I still don't have my driver's license back because the officer at the station refused to give it to me. The only photo ID I have is my college ID, and that has expired now. Note, no breathalyzer, no sobriety test, no underage people in the building. Edit, they never gave me any paperwork or anything. I've never been arrested before, so I did not know that was supposed to happen. And a user in the comments said, "Welp, wait till you get an arraignment or call your local criminal court in a few days and ask if you have a court date. I don't know what to do about your wallet other than to go back to the police station sometime when the arresting officers are not there and ask for it. I worry that if they realize their mistake, they will just tack on a disorderly or a trespassing charge or something." And another person said, "There's more to this. If you were arrested and processed, they would have ID'd you in some way, if not on the spot then at the jail, and have seen you were 21 and that the license was valid." Another person said, "You may not be taking into account the Alabama factor. AL, MS and LA are legitimately tough places to live if you are black." And guys, maybe this is a strange thing to ask, but I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever been arrested by the police? Let us know in the comments if you wish. Update, I was arrested for underage drinking while at work. I am a 21-year-old bartender, Alabama. Old post, I have already consulted a lawyer who told me I can go ahead and make this post. I am updating because the situation was weird and I got a lot of good advice from the last post. Last post I made, I did not have every detail because I was confused about the situation myself. A lot of you asked about the alcohol laws, but here we can drink in public in the downtown area. The situation was exactly how I described it. Anyway, I got a lawyer to look up the arrest records and the city had me booked with the wrong license number out of Florida, same name, same birthday, but not same birth year. The police ran my name and saw this underage guy out of Florida and thought that I was him with a fake ID. So, the charges have been dropped and all my belongings returned to me. They put a note in the system about the guy from Florida so that this won't happen again. I'm not going to do anything else because it is not worth my time to dwell on this again. And I gotta say guys, in the end here, I was pretty happy that this was only a mistake in the system, so to say, and not any sort of racial injustice, as presumed by some commenters. And by the way, if you have watched until here, it would be awesome if we could reach 1000 likes on the video. Thank you so much in advance, this really helps my channel out tremendously. And the next one is titled, LA, landlord says I cannot have intercourse, will call the police. And by the way guys, I know we have read a story before that was pretty similar, but I'm almost 100% sure this is actually a new one. Anyway, I rent a house, the landlord is my neighbor, we share a long driveway, but the houses themselves are fairly far apart. Half a mile maybe. This is in a very rural setting and there are trees covering the views from either house. This is important later. The lease is a year, I am at 6 months. When I first moved in, I was working more and dating less. About 2 months ago, I started dating more. The lease says I cannot have any overnight guests for excessive amounts, listed as over 3 nights a week. I was fine with this and this is not the issue. I have intercourse in the house I rent, a lot of it, sometimes with different men, sometimes they stay the night, never for more than 3 consecutive days, sometimes they leave after. My landlord has suddenly decided this is his business. He has begun recordings when I have male visitors only, he does not care when my mother and sister visit, he showed me his log and next to it he has recorded how long they stay, an hour or so, and how many times he has seen that one person. This is just creepy. Oftentimes when he sees a car enter the driveway, he comes over to see who it is. He has to walk half a mile over to my house, oftentimes he will knock on the door, he says to make sure I am okay and that I'm not being hurt. Why would I be being hurt by my guest? I've never complained about it in the past, he has no reason to suspect it. It is often hard to get him to leave, he uses the excuse of needing to do some landscaping to hang around. I have seen him look through the windows while my male visitor is over. He let himself in the other day and I saw where he looked through my cabinets at the condoms I had stashed in them. He threw some male underwear that got left at my rental house away, I found it in the trash, I confronted him about it and he just said he found it concerning that I had so many men over. When I come home late at night, he will come over to make sure I get in the house safe and will question me about where I have been at such a late hour. I don't need that, I'm an adult, if I wanted that I would live with my mother. I have gotten the police called on me while I've been having intercourse because they say they are getting noise complaints by my landlord, and one time he said he heard someone being attacked and I had to deal with the police on that. Edit, oftentimes I haven't even been having intercourse, it was just a male friend visiting. There is no way he could hear my normal sexual activities in a different house that far away, he won't let me break the lease, he wants me to not have intercourse in the house. Do I have any rights here? And by the way guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not completely on the wrong foot here, the 4th Amendment in the Constitution of the United States dictates that you have a right to privacy and that should be covered by it. Honestly guys, if you had such a creepy ass landlord, what would you do? I would probably instantly go to the police, even though I'm not sure what he is doing is exactly illegal, but I could not stay in an apartment/house like this. Anyway, a user in the comments said, "This is absolutely over the line, you have the right to make use and enjoy the property without excessive intrusion from your landlord. He must provide notice of, usually at least 24 hours before he can enter. On top of that, he cannot dictate what activities you undertake within the property, with some exceptions, which this certainly does not fall under. This could possibly be grounds to break the lease. Most attorneys do low-cost or free consultations. Check around for attorneys that handle this kind of stuff. A stern letter from a lawyer may be sufficient to stop this behavior. If he takes any kind of retaliatory actions, you would even have better grounds." And I'm not sure guys, but this person probably wins the award for the creepiest and most awful landlord we have seen in 2020 so far. And the next one is an update to the "Landlord said I cannot have intercourse" story. I thought I would do an update since there are some people still commenting on my post. I read the comments and I thank you for your advice and your worry about my safety. Your points were valid and I appreciate all the help you gave. I took the day off work to deal with the issue. Last night I packed some things and went to stay with some family until I can figure out what to do. I didn't tell him I was leaving, but I will continue to pay rent of course until this is all sorted out. I met with him this morning in person, with my father and brother present, to discuss the issue and whether I could break the lease early. He declined. I asked him to no longer worry about my sexual activity and to not visit without notice. I had already found a lawyer that could meet with me that morning, so I then went to see him. He gave me advice on how he could help and I will be taking him up on that. The landlord should be receiving some letters soon. My father and brother went through the house with me to look for cameras and such. We found one seemingly disconnected camera in the garage that the landlord said was used for security purposes by the last tenant. We did not find any cameras. Looking through my stuff, I found a few intimate items missing that were still there before I left last night. I cannot prove he took them. I did not confront him about them. He came over while we were searching the house and asked what we were doing. My father told him to leave and the landlord threatened to call the police if my father and brother did not leave. I told him fine and I would leave with them. As we were leaving, I offered to pay 3 months rent right there if he would let me out of the other 3 months, but he declined. Like I said, I'm staying with family, I have all the stuff I should need for a bit, and I don't plan on returning to that house until the issue is resolved. And unfortunately guys, that is how the story ends, so I think we can assume that the OP left this contract as soon as she could. And the next one is titled, Getting Charged $2,500 because of a Google review. I got a message from my former rental management company, the place I was renting from, saying that there was a negative review posted and it was clearly us. I looked up the review. This is legal portion of our lease that was sent in the message. Both parties agree that all disputes and complaints shall be resolved privately and confidentially between tenant and landlord or individually through the courts or collections, and further agrees to refrain from making defamatory statements orally or in writing about any other party and the representatives, partners or agents of the parties. Both parties agreed that it would be impractical and extremely difficult to ascertain the amount of actual damages caused by a failure to comply with this provision, and liquidated damages of $2,500 shall be payable upon demand. So they charged us $2,500. They said if we took down the review, they would take the charge off. The review is not posted under any of our names and has no factors that indicate it is from us. Is this legal? Our lease ended last month with this company. And a user in the comments said, generally that sort of clause is not enforceable, though they may try anyway. Attempting to enforce can get them in some trouble. Another person said, particularly if OP's state has an anti-SLAPP law. I don't know if your state has one, but the one in mine does fee shifting, so lawyers love it. And then someone asks, what does SLAP stand for? And it is Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. In other words, a lawsuit intended to silence you. Update: my old landlord tried to charge me $2,500 for a negative review. My old landlord told me he was charging me $2,500 for a negative review. Due to my post here, I told him about the Consumer Review Fairness Act. He has not mentioned it again, but now he actually charged me for recarpeting the entire duplex. Let me rewind. I moved out and cleaned the place top to bottom and recorded an hour's worth of videos of me running my fingers over every crevice to show there was not even dust left behind after my intense cleaning. When I moved in, I had a move-in documentation that said that the place smells bad like pets and I would not be held responsible for the odor when I left because I moved in with pets. The landlord acknowledged the carpet smell and said it was from past tenants. He emailed me after move out and said, "Thank you for leaving the place move-in ready," and gave me the carpet cleaning bill, which I anticipated because it was in the lease. Now, because I thwarted his attempt at trying to remove the negative review, he came back and said the carpet is completely ruined and the house smells like pets and I have to replace the entire house's carpet. I am taking him to court over this because he charged me for the whole process and did not show a bill either. Just said it was going to cost an estimated amount of XXX dollars and charged that. Unfortunately guys, there were no further updates to this update, but essentially at least the old story got somewhat resolved. And the next one is a little bonus from our own subreddit, posted by user Peachy Pumpkin Skinny, and it is titled, Idiot Greedy American Express knowingly gives a credit card to my identity thief. This is not exactly legal advice, but I still found it very interesting and worth listening to. Back in 2001, I received an American Express application for a pre-approved credit card. I tore it into little pieces and left it in the garbage can in the building's mailroom. Since the building was full of gangs, murderers, bank robbers, prostitutes, thieves, etc., as well as a few regular folk, when the opportunity to move to another place came to me shortly after, I took it and left that lovely place behind. I got my mail forwarded to my new address. I was shocked one day to get the taped together form back in the forwarded mail, along with a note from Amex, American Express, asking me to fill out missed sections of the application. Amex had highlighted the areas where information was missing, my social insurance number, my full name, my date of birth, all was correct. Someone called Otis Marks had put himself as a secondary card holder. He had filed out the employment area with me working at a local business. Filled not filed anyway. I called them immediately and was transferred to Amex Card Security. I told them I had never sent the application, I had torn it into pieces and thrown it in the garbage can in the mail room. The copy they sent me to complete was taped together and my information filled out, but I had no idea who the person listed as a secondary card holder was. Amex Security explained that Amex had received the application, all taped together, and found that some information was missing. So that is why they had sent it to me. I said, "How stupid can you be? Why would you process something that so clearly has been torn up and thrown away?" Well, they said they thought that I had changed my mind. I got mad. "Do not process this card application, flag my name as a fraud victim and don't approve this application." They said they would do that. About a month later I received a new American Express card in the mail. I immediately called Amex again and blew up as the customer service agent. They forwarded me to security and I blew up at them. The guy said,
"Well, someone called and demanded to know where their credit card was, so we told them about the missing information and they mailed us a photocopy of the application with it filled in."
"Are you kidding me?" I exploded. "Did you not think that it might be the thief that was calling you? I told you to flag that application."
"Yes, ma'am, but we called the employer and they said that you worked there and that you have a secure job, so we sent it out."
I was mad. "Well, I don't work there," I exclaimed. Security guy was apologetic.
"We are really sorry, ma'am,"
he said.
"To make it up to you, we will send you a pre-approved credit card."
I could not believe my ears. I told them to cancel the card immediately and not send one out again. He said sure, okay, they wouldn't, and suggested I call TransUnion and Equifax, credit bureaus, and have an identity theft fraud alert put on my credit. I bellowed at them again to cancel the card and not send out another, and hung up. Then I called the police. A couple of officers came and looked at the card. They hemmed and hawed and looked at the application. One said, "Are you sure you didn't apply for this credit card?" "Of course I didn't," I replied. "That's not my signature. I've been a victim of fraud and forgery. As you can see, the application is all torn up, but this Otis Marks person taped it together and filled it in. Please help me. How did they get my information?" The two of them hemmed and hawed some more and said that people's information was for sale if you knew where to look. Well, the one said, "We don't really know who this person is or where they live, so there's nothing we can do." I pointed out that the guy's name and place of work were on the application.
"Yes, but anyone could have answered the phone and pretended to be an employer when Amex called,"
one said.
"It could have been a friend. It might have even been this Otis Marks guy himself. He might not work there at all. It might even be a made-up place and a made-up name."
"Well, you know the building he lives in," I said desperately. "You know he will be watching that mailbox like a hawk. My mailbox has a broken window, so mail can just be fished out through it. Can't you ask the property manager if someone by that name lives there?" They packed up their notebooks and told me they could do nothing until Otis Marks actually got the card and started ringing up sales and ruining my credit.
"If he had gotten the card and put charges on it, then we could have done something,"
they said as they ambled out. The next day I called TransUnion and Equifax and had fraud alerts put on my credit. Each fraud alert lasts 5 years. I renew them when they expire. Whoever applied for this card under the name Otis Marks is a complete turd, and I hate this person with the fire of 1,000 burning suns. I hope they burn in one. Thank you very much, Peachy Pumpkin Skinny, for posting this interesting story. And I gotta say, I am not the biggest fan of credit cards, guys. Actually, way back in the past, I had a credit card that almost exactly worked like a debit card. And I was pretty happy with that, but unfortunately, that sort of credit card is no longer really available in Europe where I am from. So nowadays I have to settle for a normal credit card, which I rarely use, to be honest. How about you? Do you often use your credit card? Let us know in the comments. And guys, this marks the end of the first part of the video. The second part is gonna be comprised of a set of older stories that some of you might have heard already if you are a loyal subscriber. However, if you are new to the channel, these stories will be new for you as well. And the next one is titled "Fiancé Calls Needing Me to Transfer $500 to Her Bank Account, Legally Cannot Tell Me Why. What the F?" There is no trust issue between us and $500 is a lot of money, so she's not spending it frivolously. She told me that the call was being recorded and that for legal reasons she could not tell me why she needed the money. What possible scenario would involve her needing money but being unable to tell any other person why she needs it? A person in the comments said, "You say you trust her and you are sure she's not scamming you or lying to you." Okay, fine, but maybe she's being scammed herself and truly believes she's not legally allowed to tell you the reason. There is no legitimate legal reason she would not be permitted to tell you, so she's either lying or being misled. Another person said, "I think this is the most likely outcome in regards to being scammed herself, and it really bugs me that people are jumping to point the finger at her as a scammer rather than a potential scam victim, which is really more likely. Never attribute to malice what is explainable by ignorance, etc." And guys, I'm curious, have you ever been the victim of a similar scam? Let us know in the comments. Next one is an update to the scam story. I would like to thank everyone for their responses to my question earlier. My fiancée is home and safe. She was involved in a quite complicated scam, as many of you had suspected. She got a call from 911, spoofed number from a person claiming to be an IRS agent. They stated that there was a warrant out for her arrest for evading taxes related to the colleges she has been to. All of this was information they had, as well as our home address. She was told that if she did not agree to settle her debt immediately, or if she ended the phone call, officers would be coming to place her under arrest. Furthermore, they told her before she called me that if she disclosed why she needed the money, she would have additional criminal charges. After getting money, she gave them codes for high-value credit cards purchased at the store. I know, it sounds really stupid in hindsight. The red flags were not nearly as obvious in context of the high-tension ordeal. Now, to figure out how I can get these charges reversed. Thanks again for everyone's input and concern. Edit, it was a traumatic learning experience for her and I. Maybe we could try to keep things positive in here. Another person in the comments mentioned, "You need to explain this to her and understand it yourself. The IRS and law enforcement in general, and anyone really, won't call you and say they need cash immediately. Explanation or not, the IRS and the police specifically don't call, they show up and either knock on the door or knock through the door, they show badges. The IRS phone call scam is very common around tax season. They apply pressure to hurry a decision and make it sound urgent. You and others, not just you OP, you are not alone in this at all, need to understand what they are asking for and what evidence they have on you. All that stuff they brought up is on Google, and hell, with LexisNexis I can get your cell phone provider and list of close relatives, addresses and their numbers." I'm curious guys, did you ever receive such a fake IRS phone call? Let us know in the comments. Next one is titled, "Being sued personally by a customer of the store where I work. Says she slipped on the floor I was cleaning and she's injured." I am a cleaner at a supermarket. On January 16th I was cleaning a closed off section of the store. I was cleaning the floor, so it was wet. Suddenly someone started shouting and a lady was saying that she slipped on the floor and fell and that she was in pain. I helped her get back on her feet. She walked alright. She was in the closed off section, so not supposed to be there, and there were signs. Then my manager came to talk to her. She was protesting, but he said that the section was closed off. Then they talked some more, but I don't know what was said because I went back to work. Last Thursday in the mail there was a letter. It is from a lawyer saying the lady was seriously injured and had to go to the hospital, and she's asking for $24,000 or she will take me to court personally for her injuries, hospital costs, and now she's disabled. At first I did not even know who she was, then I remembered. It did not look like she was badly injured when she was talking to my manager. I'm just a cleaner, I don't have that kind of money, I was just doing my job as told by my manager and following all the rules, and the lady was not supposed to be where she was. Don't know how she got my name and address. We have name tags but with just our first name. I don't know why she is coming after me personally and not the store. What can I do? There's no way I can pay that kind of money. A person in the comments said, "You are not being sued at this time, you have received a demand letter from an attorney. The store you work for should have liability insurance for exactly this sort of thing, and you need to make them aware of what is going on. The insurance company has attorneys that will deal with it. As an employee performing normal duties, you should not be personally liable here." And the next one is an update to the janitor's story. "Thanks for your help with my question. You guys are good. It was indeed a scam, as some of you said. I took the letter to my manager and we went to the general manager's office. Seems like everyone, my manager, co-worker who was on the same shift, received the same letter. They said not to worry and go back to work, they will handle it. At most I will be asked to give a statement, but I won't be liable for anything." Then they pulled the security tapes. By luck they keep them for long and they were quite interesting. They even called me so we could have a good laugh. So this lady and her husband had been at our store and bought 2 full carts of groceries. They both were pushing a cart and for some reason the guy was not able to control his and it started taking speed. Parking lot has a slight slope and hit the woman. She fell hard on her ass, must have hurt. She had a hard time getting back on her feet, so maybe she was injured for real, and that is where the medical bills come from. Anyway, she went back to their car and half an hour later back into the store. Then she literally flew herself to the ground when she passed the section I was cleaning. That was quite an artistic fall. Then of course she started yelling and everything. So yeah, a scam alright, but maybe the injuries were real. It sucks that she got injured, but it is really scummy to try and scam minimum wage workers who don't have money to throw around. I don't get why people do that. I must say I was quite scared before you people gave me advice. Thanks a lot for your help. And I gotta agree, that is probably the most scummy thing to do, to try and scam minimum wage workers. Like, how the hell do you even get such an idea? Have you guys ever been asked to pay outrageous sums of money for something you supposedly did? Let us know in the comments. Texas, live/work in shelter. Co-worker has dangerously unsafe food handling habits. MGMT, aware but dragging feet. Constructive dismissal? So he's doing the following: frequently thawing raw chicken, hamburger, fish in sink overnight in very warm kitchen, upwards of 16 hours, then does not check cooked products with thermometer to ensure internal temp has risen high enough to kill the critters that have multiplied in such a welcoming environment. Moreover, he saves used grease and frying oil in non-airtight, not even refrigerated coffee cans and reuses the often rancid results for frying and or making gravy with. He also stores tiny portions of leftover meals, which are not kept at safe hot/cold temperatures during the hour a mealtime is served, for weeks on end, and then may or may not use them. Note that this is done despite a warning posted on our staging refrigerator not to store leftovers, and the staging refrigerator is supposed to be used for thawing and storing thawed meat. But we don't have room to use it for the meats mentioned in the first bullet point because of these useless leftovers. Also, he will not use scoops with handles in dry goods, rice flour, sugar. Instead, he uses measuring cups. The scoops are required by the health department to avoid having the part of the measuring utensil that has been handled drop back into the dry good. When I asked him to keep using the scoop, he said,
"Why? The health department won't be back for another year."
So much more. My immediate, now ex-boss, and his boss have been made aware of the conditions multiple times over this past year, verbally, with kitchen tours where conditions are pointed out, and after finding out that Texas is a one-party consent state, with an audio recording at an employee evaluation where I repeated much of this and disavowed their previous request that I clean up/cover for this cook for fear of inferred liability. All of the above is documented by photos and video. They promised to send him to get food handling certification and presumably a higher awareness of just how easily food can become contaminated, as well as talk to him about his current practices, but the last promise was almost 5 months ago now and nothing has come of it again. I live and work here. I'm terrified that these elderly and or immune compromised clients are going to get hit by serious food poisoning and that I will be included in the following lawsuits even if I show I exerted all due diligence I could to address the situation. The health department is softballing their inspections, the board of directors and corporate tours through the kitchen are brief and gloss over the filthy conditions, and I'm afraid if I go to social media on this, I will lose my job, my place to live and become a pariah in this town for daring to protest this.
They, the homeless, should just be grateful for what they get.
An apparent
"nothing's happened yet, so nothing will happen"
mentality. This is a part-time $7.65 per hour job. I need to get out of here, but at nearly 53 years old, I don't face homelessness fearlessly. I'm hoping I can quit, but claim constructive dismissal for unemployment purposes. I don't know where I will stay, as this is the only men's shelter in the area, but I will figure that out and whether I should go to the social media route later, after I have some income, small as it is, from unemployment. Legal Aid tells me I have some whistleblower protection, but that is an after-the-fact consolation. They can and will fire me and kick me out in the meantime. I have never been in such a moral dilemma in my life. It really seems the only way this person will be addressed is to publicize the conditions. But that leads to the very real risk of shutting down the kitchen and possibly even the shelter for other reasons. How would you all advise I proceed? A person in the comments said, "It sounds like the board of directors and corporate are not fully aware of the situation. Maybe you should try moving up the management chain. You have given lower management every opportunity to remedy." Another person said, "From a more practical standpoint, if you get fired and kicked out from the shelter, do you have anywhere, literally anywhere to go? Any distant friends, acquaintances, churches, secular community organizations, etc. who could take you in on a strictly temporary basis? If at all possible, try and have something lined up first. Then I would go above the head of whoever is inspecting from the health department. Get to the department head. If that does not work, go to your county supervisors, aldermen, councilmen, not sure what they are called in Texas, raise it in a public comment at the next public meeting if need be. Be sure to bring the pictures, preferably in print, with you so you can pass them on to the supervisors. Alternatively, you can try the media. Local TV or newspapers will probably bite on this story. If you happen to work with a good journalist on this, you may even be able to remain anonymous. Although it does not prevent your boss putting 2 and 2 together and figuring out it was you who complained. Another option may be your local ACLU chapter, who may or may not be willing/able to assist. As you said, this is the only men's shelter in your area. If all homeless males are subjected to this in order to get shelter, but if, say, homeless women are not, that could possibly be a basis for a disparate impact suit against the health department. Again, if there are women's shelters nearby with better sanitation. There are a lot of factors, and I am not a lawyer, so I cannot really give you good analysis here, but this may be another option for you. The downside of all this is that you will likely get fired. It is unfair and it should never happen to anyone in your situation. It is even more unfair that this is your only living option right now. On the other hand, you may be able to impart positive change, even if it means shutting the shelter down and starting from the ground up with a new facility. And guys, I'm curious, what would you do in this situation? Would you become the so-called whistleblower? Even though you might become homeless afterwards and have nowhere to go? Let us know in the comments, and I'm also curious, what do you think, or rather, what is your opinion about whistleblowers in general? Could they be considered traitors, or are they doing their country a great service? Let us know your opinion in the comments. And the next one is an update to the homeless shelter story. I am pulling the trigger. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get fired and end up on the street, but even if they don't fire me, which would be smart on their part, I will probably quit anyway and try filing for what little unemployment I could qualify for under constructive dismissal. By the way, nobody really answered about the chances on that in my last post. But hey, maybe I will finally see some action taken. Here's the complaint email sent to the local health department. Please be advised that there are numerous apparent health code violations in the major charitable organizations' kitchen and shelter facilities. Also, please be advised that I am an employee of the facility and have heavily documented said apparent violations. The following links are only a sample of these apparent violations over the past year. I suggest viewing them with a computer instead of a cell phone, as there are descriptions attached to most of these photos that may not show up on mobile. So here are the pictures, and as you can see, it's pretty disgusting. The kitchen is particularly troubling, as many of the above linked conditions and others not shown were readily apparent during your last inspection, yet we were only cited for relatively minor violations. For example, needing towel/soap dispensers, new food thermometers, scoops to replace measuring cups for dispensing dry goods, and an out-of-code jar of peanut butter. Ignored were many mouse droppings, large visible mouse nest, dead mouse under refrigerator, old grease built up on many surfaces, undefrosted freezers, unlabeled foods, no first aid kit, and much more. Some of these conditions were addressed proactively, but many of them have returned, with other issues never addressed. I'm afraid the organization is taking advantage of your department's probable reluctance to enforce the code as strictly as you should, presumably to avoid shutting down the kitchen, but there are alternate places the clients can eat during the week. The bedbug pictures linked above only touch on one room. They have risen to the level of infestation in the common dorm. Unfortunately, due to management inaction and your department's apparent unwillingness to force this facility to follow the law, and particularly because the homeless tend to be comprised of a much larger than normal group of immune-compromised individuals, drug users/elderly, and hence at a higher risk of infections/poisoning than the general populace, I feel forced to publicize these photos and videos through all local media and social media at a soon-to-be determined date if I do not see a rapid and full reaction. I've been trying to get these conditions addressed for nearly a year now, and I believe it's up to your department to force the organization into action rather than them worrying about a new shelter that is 2 years away from being built, or that the retail store is getting a cosmetic facelift. The homeless are people too, and while yes, they are grateful for what they receive, they should not be at a constant elevated risk of food poisoning and or side effects of multiple bedbug bites. I believe this strongly enough to not report this anonymously, running the risk of being fired and becoming homeless myself. I work and live here, not to mention probably becoming unemployable in the area for whistleblowing on a normally well-respected charity organization. I am notifying the shelter's commander of this email as soon as I see him today. If you have questions, please email me or call me. And a user in the comments said, "Don't quit, that would make you ineligible for unemployment." The only way in which this could be construed as constructive dismissal is if they told you to do something that is actually illegal or quit. Just being gross is not sufficient. Third, if they actually do fire you, you will have a strong claim of reprisal for filing a legal report, which is absolutely actionable. Not big payday actionable, but keep a roof over your head while you find another job actionable. Fourth, you have no personal legal liability if you did not do anything wrong. And the other employee would likely be covered by the employment scenario as well. This is one of the few situations in which going to the media, if the inspectors don't pick this up, might be a good idea. Sixth, the Salvation Army has serious issues, and I'm sorry you have to deal with them. Oh, because they are religious, I don't know what the situation is with respect to unemployment. I know that a lot of religious employers are exempt. Do you know if you've been paying into the system? And guys, I'm curious, have you ever heard about any charity organizations in your area that have done questionable things like the ones mentioned in this story? Let us know in the comments. And by the way, is it just me, or is the OP some kind of superhero? Honestly, if you ask me, we need more people like him in the world. This guy is pretty much sacrificing his job, or rather his normal life, to improve the situation of others. Next one is another update to the shelter story. Pyrrhic victory, as I knew it would be. And by the way, I looked that word up in the dictionary. Anyway, reported to health department, they showed up 3 days later and softballed the inspection again. However, as seen by the pic, at least MGT finally got moving on getting the kitchen cleaned up. And guys, as you can see on the picture, apparently by softballing he means that the inspection only brought up small minor things and nothing major, once again. Anyway, if I had not been in the very unusual position of having 3 client volunteers willing to pitch in and help, I would have told the big boss to pound sand, since he was aware of the conditions for years and had allowed them to stay that way, and I had already advised him to get community service volunteers in to do the cleanup 6 months previously, but he chose to use them to help in the office with paperwork filing instead. Anyway, so the kitchen is cleaner, great, still did not address the co-workers' habits. Approached my immediate boss for help in having a sit down with the big boss and the co-worker and why, and her first response is to accuse me of over-relying on the volunteers, not concerned that there was an ongoing health hazard going on. Puzzling behavior, but explained in a bit. So I get the big boss and the co-worker in a sit down, explain to co-worker in presence of big boss that some of his habits were unacceptable and that I waited almost a year for them to be addressed by MGT, and I guess MGT is management, please correct me if I'm wrong. In addition to my own attempts at addressing them with the co-worker directly. Also that I was sorry, but I was willing to have the kitchen/shelter shut down rather than see those habits continued. Big boss tells co-worker to stop those habits, they have decreased but still to this day continue when he thinks he can get away with them. Big boss tells me that my job is not threatened but that he is aware it was me that reported them. I shrugged since I had clearly told the health department who I was and how to contact me. So habits are going to continue and there's nothing else I can do about them. Management knows that they happen, will continue to ignore them. Oh well. What was my immediate boss's reaction about this? According to a couple of my client volunteers who witnessed the conversations firsthand, it turns out she had already been talking with the co-worker and assured him that she
had the co-worker's back,
and that anything the co-worker chose to complain about regarding me would be corroborated and acted upon immediately regardless of the truth of those complaints. So yes, retaliations have begun, was told to return to my bedbug infested room instead of sleeping out in the dining room as I had been since August. I refused, told I was over relying on those aforementioned volunteers and that I was always on the computer, implying I am not doing my job. I had no volunteers for over a year and got by fine. While my coworker has had a series of semi-permanent volunteers and still has timeline issues, but that was not relevant apparently. I am on my computer, which is in the kitchen in a work cubby. I'm not staying in my room for anything until the bedbugs are addressed. Off shift all the time, and that is the only time my boss has ever seen me on it. She has not yet once been in the kitchen while I've been working in the 2 months or so she has been here. Other incidents as well, all of them cropping up only after I got the health department in. So, I'm done. The bedbugs are allegedly going to be addressed shortly. They'd better be, as they have gotten very bad and are really tearing some people up. My main goals were to get the co-workers' habits addressed, the kitchen cleaned up and the bedbugs addressed for the sake of the health and safety of our clients. I've done all I can do. I'm setting up a recurring Google search for this facility and references to food poisoning. If there is a hit, I'm contacting the affected person or people with all the documentation I have showing the facility has been aware of the issue for a while and chose not to actively address it. I'm getting ready to hit the road, hitchhiking by necessity to destination unknown at this time. Seattle seems attractive. I am a self-taught computer technician, have been for the last almost 30 years, and I really miss the work after this year's relapse into my old cooking skills. Not sure what the future is going to bring, but I'm satisfied I've at least begun changes at a facility that has unfortunately settled into complacency and been counting over ensuring the client's needs are met in a safe, legal manner. The main thing that pissed me off was that there really was not much money involved. $50 per room for bedbug treatment is a hell of a deal. There were only 4 rooms to treat and could have been done every 3 months, and at least reduce them to raiding parties instead of invading battalions. The cleanup of the kitchen could have been handled at any time with no cost labor, community service volunteers. It took me figuratively blackmailing the health department after a year of inaction for these things to happen. It is done, I am done. Anyone need a computer tech with modest wage needs? Will travel anywhere at the moment, even have my passport. Edit, too long didn't read. I reported the facility to health department, kitchen got cleaned, co-worker spoken to, but continues his habits occasionally, bedbugs allegedly will be addressed, but not holding my breath. Retaliatory actions have begun, not worth my time to deal with them anymore. Will try to monitor the situation via Google searches and insider information. I am about to hit the road and hitchhike who knows where in search of the computer work I've been doing for 30 years. Conditionally satisfied that I've done all I can do for my clients for now. A person in the comments said, I'm not a lawyer, but I am a food safety expert. The person with the poor food handling habits should be fired. If they even continue with some of their poor practices in the kitchen, then at some point down the road, your kitchen is going to kill someone. It is a numbers game, it always is when food pathogens are involved. At some point the odds will intersect, and an immune-compromised person in your facility will ingest listeria or salmonella, and instead of simply having a gastrointestinal illness, they will get so sick they will die. It is not a question of if, it's a question of when. I know you already said I'm out of here, but I'm posting this here so anyone who works in food service can read it and gets an expert's perspective on how these situations play out. And guys, honestly, I have to ask myself, what the hell does this organization gain by not cleaning up the kitchen, not getting rid of the bedbugs, etc.? SOP said they are not really saving money by doing this. In the long run, they maybe have some lawsuits coming their way, so why don't they just clean up the place? I really don't get it. And another update to the shelter story. By the way guys, please let me know in the comments if you enjoy these super long stories with multiple updates or if you prefer the shorter ones. Anyway, so I had pretty much abandoned this alt after its primary use for the above drama, but while troubleshooting my primary alt I loaded this one again and saw a request for a follow-up a year later. Not sure if anyone else still cares, but just in case. I did in fact end up hitchhiking to Seattle in winter, almost 2000 miles, because I did not dare brave the more straightforward but far colder routes through Oklahoma, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, or NM, Utah, Idaho. So I ended up following the lower southern, far western coastal route, pretty much I-10 to I-5. And I guess I-5 means Interstate 5. Anyway, it took about 3.5 weeks, and with the exceptions of nearing a crisis of hypothermia in the California mountains along I-5 and the final leg where I was made the driver in a 2-vehicle caravan where the owner was pretty much a semi-functioning schizophrenic. I would use a more modern, less stigmatizing term, but there seems to be some division as to what that term will be in the West, was pretty uneventful. I got dropped off in downtown Seattle, registered at a mission, then found an organization where I could use their address to update my bank card info so I could have access to my final paycheck. The bank had frozen the account because it was being used across multiple states in rapid succession. Next, located a print shop that would make custom signs and had this sandwich board made. I bought a couple of removable business card holders to hold business cards when I could afford them. The sign maker gave me a great deal, but my funds were pretty low by then, and donations, and stuck them on the sign. I got an account at the Seattle main library branch and started surfing for local jobs. Once I hit my daily 1.5 hour limit, I would hit the streets with the sandwich board and wander to the various tech company buildings and try to catch someone's attention. I did get some nibbles over a 2-month period, both online and via the sign, but frustratingly there was not any follow-up, though there were a lot of attaboys for taking the sandwich board route. I had been keeping my sister reassured / up to date, and I guess she had been passing on my efforts at the cooking job, and while I was in Seattle because I got a call out of the blue from my estranged father. One of the biggest suspicions I had about the lack of follow-up was not because I was homeless per se, but because I am completely self-taught and never really had the time / money to go to college or get certifications. A country mechanic, PC technician, if you will. She knew that, and I guess Dad was impressed enough by what I was trying to do that his offer was to come home and help care for him. In return he would pay for community college and or certifications plus a small stipend. So that is what I've been doing for the past almost 2 years, taking care of him, getting reacquainted, taking classes and certs as I can get the time to do so. He's almost 80 and needs a fair bit of care. Hopefully, I will reach a point where I am close to a shoe-in for a decent telecommuting job. I'm not looking for on-site work until after he has passed on, but there's no rush. Thanks for all your advice and encouragement. Life is looking much better these days. Quite frankly, that was a surprisingly wholesome ending, and I hope you enjoyed this long story. And guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.